Hi everyone, thanks for joining in tonight's Hangout on Air about how to use technology better. It's great to have Helen on the other end. So Helen, welcome. It's great to be doing this with somebody different. I usually use a different co-host for our Hangout, so it's great to have someone from the other side of the ditch, no less. So how about you introduce yourself?
Great, thanks, Mike. Do I need to click on me or do anything, or will that just go ahead?
No, you're right to go.
Okay, great, awesome. Okay, so I'm Helen Prescott, and I'm the e-learning facilitator at Sunny Hill School in Auckland and Pakuranga. And this is really exciting, our first sort of hangout on air with Mike as a follow-up from my Ulearn workshop. So welcome, everyone. It's really exciting to be here. And thank you, Mike.
Oh, that's all right. It's great. Hey, just wanted to let you know that there is a Google Doc that you can interact with if you want, and there's also a Q&A app that is running just on the right-hand side of your screen. So if you'd like to use any of those mediums to be able to ask us questions, feel free to do that. If you want to find out the doc is just bit.ly and then / and these are in capital letters, so it's GAFE and then set up in lowercase, so no space, so bit.ly and then / GAFE, all capitals, and then lowercase set up. So feel free to click on that link. You'll also see the link just posted into the page below where you're watching this video, so just feel free to click on that. If you want to use social media as well, you can certainly just use the hashtag #UsingTechBetter, and we'll see that come up on Twitter, and I'll be able to answer your question there as well. So Helen, I thought it would be a great way to start just by just asking you a little bit about Ulearn and what you learnt. I couldn't make it over to New Zealand this year for the conference, so always keen to hear what people have learnt and what they're taking away.
Yeah, wow. I mean, Mike, it was overwhelming. The real focus on pedagogy, it was amazing, and they had some fantastic keynote speakers and all the workshops. It was probably the best Ulearn I've had yet. Each year it just gets better and better, but this year, of course, it coincided with the Connected Educators Month, and so there was a lot more focus on connecting, which was really awesome. One of the things I did notice this year that we seem to be developing, further in New Zealand, is with Twitter. Like last year, for example, people would tweet out, what presenters were saying and some great sort of moments, and tweet those out. This year it changed. Not only were people tweeting out, but they started engaging in conversations and challenging each other of what the tweets were, and suddenly you had this whole sort of conversation happening in the background while the presenter's talking, the keynote speaker. And it was awesome because some of those keynotes were quite intense, and it was great to have that extra talk going on just to nut it out a bit further. So yeah, that was really powerful. So I think Twitter's people are really getting into Twitter and starting to utilise it, and we're seeing the amazing results. So it's awesome. Yeah. So
it's amazing how things have changed now with social media and just that real-time engagement, the backward and forwarding. And it's so true. You've got this back channel going in the background, and another thing to watch and another thing to notice. I think it's fascinating to see all that sort of stuff. One of the things I've noticed, especially about New Zealand teachers, and one of the things I appreciate every time I come over and do a speaking tour, is you guys are just so passionate. We're talking just before we went live about how you just jump in a car and drive 5 hours to go see someone speak, and I think that's just fantastic, and the connections and the relationships you guys have over there is something I'm certainly really keen to be looking at and digging into a little bit later next year as well.
Yeah, definitely. We keep that going, that's for sure. It's amazing, and I think a lot of us, if we're in schools where we don't have many people who are as passionate, we use our social media to keep us going. We connect with those like-minded people, and it's just amazing. So yeah, good.
Oh, that's great. Well, I'm keen to hear a little bit about your story. One of the things I've always noticed whenever I do a hangout on air or have some sort of live training, you're one of the first people to put your hand up and say, yep, I'm in. So I'm really keen to hear a little bit about your story, about your school, about your role, and then we'll just transition this a little bit into Google Apps and best practice for deployment, and a little bit about use as well. So maybe can you just explain to me just what age level your students are, and just how you got started with Google Apps? What's the story behind that?
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm at a primary school that's from year 0 to year 6, and I've been there almost 3 years now, and my role as e-learning facilitator, which is sort of evolved, and over those years I just run all of the e-learning really, so from strategic planning right through to working with the kids and the teachers and managing the technical side, and also ordering equipment. And yeah, the principal's amazing. She lets me go for it, so I do. So it's been an exciting journey. Two of my big projects that I have run at the school have been BYOD and the Google Apps for Education and deploying that. So they've sort of run hand in hand. So I've been very busy with supporting all the teachers and also setting up and making those things work and happen, and so that it's all about the learning, isn't it? So we're focusing on supporting the learning. So we have BYOD for our year 5 and 6s, and that's been very successful. We started with a trial last year, some trial classes, and managed to convince the board to roll it out to our senior syndicate, and I'd like to continue seeing that go down further down the school. So at the moment it is year 5, 6, and they can bring any device they like. Then that's has had its challenges, but it's been fantastic. The kids are really engaged, excited. Google Apps for Education has been a huge game changer, and I believe that you really do need to have a common platform such as Google Apps for Education to really support the bring your own device as well. And we've seen some really great changes this year with focuses on writing, collaborative writing, and just that connection and collaboration even between the year levels. So for example, in year 4 we have some exceptionally talented writers, and so we've got them coming in writing with some year 6 children on a collaborative document, and just the buzz and the hype about writing and the talk, it's great. It's been really, really exciting. But yeah, and we've had our hiccups along the way with different, like over here in New Zealand, you might have heard of Network for Learning. So they're rolling out the internet for free on all New Zealand schools, so we changed to that this year. So we've had quite a few changes going on this year for the teachers have had to handle, and I think when you do a rollout you need to really make sure you don't put too much on the teachers and don't overwhelm them too much, because Google Apps for Education is huge, and it's about taking manageable bites, I feel. This year we just focused on writing as a focus, so that those teachers that weren't as, were needing more support, they were comfortable just taking a bite into collaborative writing and focusing just on that. And then of course it still meant that other teachers could dwell further and do other things, but it just had one main focus around the writing, and that actually worked really well for all the teachers. Yeah, and it meant that there was, when you shared in syndicate meetings, you talked about what was happening, and it was a shared focus, so it was quite powerful. And it was a really good base to go from. So now the teachers are now moving on. They're still obviously loving that collaborative writing. We're seeing great changes with the kids and their writing, and now they're sort of looking and trying out all the other little apps and other things that can happen as well. But I think writing's a good thing to start with. Do you find most schools start with writing, or it varies?
No, it seems to vary quite a bit. Some schools want to go down the whole path of content creation, and so they really want to dig into apps and extensions, and maybe they're coming off a platform like Apple and using iPads, and it's just been too much of a nightmare to manage those apps or to be able to get data off the student work off the iPad, so they're looking for that content creation change. Sometimes it's been about email and calendar because their email server has packed it in, and rather than going out and buying another one, they're looking to Google Apps to provide that free internet or the free email service for them. And so different schools come at it from different angles, but to be honest, there's not a huge number of schools who would say, let's really start with digging into our writing side of things and get that moving. It makes complete sense that you would, But I guess they're more interested in just augmenting a little bit about what they're doing in the classroom rather than rethinking it in terms of, I guess, their workflow. So I was really interested when you were telling me about some of the writing activities that you were getting the students to do and the uplift you're getting in, reluctant writers and so on. I don't know if you've got any examples of that, or maybe you can just talk and just give us an example of some of the activities you started off with, just to
Yeah.
maybe spark a few ideas in some schools.
Yeah, absolutely. There was one, we didn't have time to go into it in my workshop, but I put the links into my presentation. And one of the first things we started with was this recipe for writing. Jill Hammond from Core Education did a writing course a few years ago at Ulearn, a pre-workshop, a pre-conference course, which I did, and I got a lot out of that. And recipe writing is when you it's a very structured process focused on collaborative writing, and for example, the first part of the recipe is you're looking very much at children are grouped into groups and working on the same Google document. So they've got the one Google document and your whole class will be on the one Google document. And so you might put in just trying to think about some screenshots somewhere. I probably have. I have to think. But anyway, so you'd have your group name, so the kids could come up with a group name and pop them into the Google document, and then they would type underneath their group name. So you'd start off with, first of all, saying, okay, we'll have a common theme, and I don't know, say for example, you might think it's a thunderous, it's a thundery sort of night, it's a stormy night. You can choose wherever you are. And then you first enter into that scene and you say, right, you're like a silent camera. You're not going to describe any sounds, you're going to describe what you see. And so their first paragraph is all about what they see, introducing and setting the scene by describing the scene. So some kids choose, to be on the beach or on a road in town or wherever they want to be. And as they're typing, they can see what other kids are typing, and it scaffolds them. So our less confident writers are picking up on words, and we talk about copying ideas and how getting an idea and then expanding on it is a really good thing. And it's okay to we don't want to just copy and paste and say, hey, look at us, but it's about just giving that scaffold. And when students can see what other students are doing and writing, and particularly those more capable writers, they are able to get ideas. And sometimes that's what the reluctant writers struggle with, ideas, and so it gives them some ideas and gets them started a lot faster. So that's kind of how I started it. And the recipe writing is a whole format, a whole process to it. So your second step is building in sound, and and your third step, etc., etc. So until you finally have your whole story unfolding. And I remember the first time I did it with a year 6 class, I was like, I asked them at the beginning who doesn't like writing, and I had about at least 10 hands, up, and then at the end I said, so how do you feel about it now? And they're like, oh, we love it. So I think if you can have that change and attitude, you're going to see changes in their own writing ability. But even I find having technology and having those devices in the classrooms, they've really just taken off with that. Then there's other situations with collaborative writing. So it might be that they're working on a project together, and so they're compiling a presentation or just a document. I think one of the teachers did a piece. They had to do persuasive writing and sell each other's houses or something. And so it was good because they were put into pairs and they actually had to work. And what I love about Google Docs is that you can go into the file history and then you can see exactly how much input each student has had. So there's that accountability. So you can't just sit back and do nothing, as a lot of students in a group can think, oh yeah, sweet, I'll just let one person do all the work, what they like sometimes, these students. So it does give that accountability, and they know you can track them. So they, so I think sometimes just working in pairs. We've had where we do letter writing, and we've had our year 4 children come and work at the same time as our year 6 children, and with the year 6 children buddied up, and I think just seeing those I don't know, there's something about seeing other people writing at the same time in one document. It really gives a buzz to children. It's incredible. So that's kind of how we started out and progressing. And then, of course, we added things, started delving into things like WeVideo, where, for example, with persuasive writing, we could they could script it and then put video together where they'd add their voice, and then you can hear. I think it really does cement a lot of that learning when you add video with it, with the writing, and it's great because the kids don't realise they're writing. And WeVideo has a collaborative feature so that you can, children working on a WeVideo, they can all be working on different parts of the project at the same time on different devices, and that's really powerful. So yeah, it's been an exciting journey, and I think it's important to let the kids drive it as well, because it's about letting go. It's about pedagogy and letting the children drive it. We had one teacher who was doing a Google presentation, or actually he'd said to the children, I want you to write about something you're passionate about. You can go into groups. And so there's a bunch of boys who were in their groups, and they decided to get together and write about Minecraft. And the teacher was like, oh, and I thought, oh, I'll just go with this. And these are boys that don't normally like to write, and they wrote passionately about Minecraft, and they even edited and proofread their own work without being told. I mean, and when you get results like that, I mean, my goodness, these boys normally don't care about proofreading or editing, and it's hard to get students to do that. So when they did it on their own, that was exciting. But so a lot of it is the pedagogy behind it as well. If you have all the reins and have that tight control, yeah, you won't have the same sort of results. So you do have to think about and plan how you're going to use that technology.
Yeah, that's so true. I think there's some great points in there, especially around just letting students see other students' work and getting ideas, and not being concerned about plagiarism, obviously teaching them about it, but that's how things work in the real world, right? Like we see someone's idea, that sparks a thought, we go off on our own. And that sort of strategy really works, especially with kids like my son, for instance. He's very logical, and so you ask them to write a creative piece, and he just doesn't want to do it because it's not real, it's not fact, and that's where he wants to occupy. But for him to get some ideas that can spark some thought, that makes a real difference. So I can totally relate to what you're saying, and how just Google Docs then is almost like the silent tool behind it that just enables that and just empowers that kind of learning to happen. I don't like it when schools get stuck on, oh, you've got to have this tool and look what this tool can do. I'd much rather focus on look what the students can do and just let that tool be that silent thing in the background.
Yeah, definitely.
For sure.
It's got to be that student outcome, eh? And I think the next step with the writing was actually getting the children to use the commenting feature to give feed forward and feedback, and that's been really powerful as well, so that once they get used to collaborating, it's then building in that reflection and using the commenting feature. And the kids love it. And in fact, we had kids come to school, the teacher would put stuff in as well. And sometimes the kids would come to school the next day and go, oh, where's my comment? Now, if you have a kid write a story in a book and a teacher adds a comment, do you think that kid ever reads it? No.
Yeah, exactly.
But, for kids to come to school and say, where's my comment? It's like, wow, they are really motivated, and that makes such a difference, in the writing process.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I just spoke at a PE teachers conference on the weekend, and I was talking to them about this sort of thing, that you'll start to have conversations with your students when they'll walk in the morning and be cranky at another student because they haven't responded to their comment in a doc overnight. And they're going, oh, nah, not our students, that wouldn't happen. Like, they're not going to work at night on this or on weekends. And I got my first email just 3 days later with a teacher saying, I didn't believe you when you told me, but it just happened this morning. One student came in cranky at the other student because they hadn't responded to their comment overnight. So it's just that immediate lift in like anywhere, anytime learning, which is fantastic.
Absolutely. I've had to teachers do have to be a bit careful though if they start editing work at night and the students watching that. you got to have a work-life balance as well, and it's, yeah, you got to sort of set that boundary, I think. But it is hard, because I know in the holidays, I think students were doing speeches, and I could see them writing the speeches, and I was like, oh, I can go and comment on them. And that was powerful, because I could see in the holidays, it's like, oh no, they're going down the wrong path. So that was great. I was able to comment and correct them during the holidays. Yeah,
So
rather than going down the path too far. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that is great. So if we start to maybe just transition a little bit across to just some of the best practice around getting Google Apps going in your school and just facilitating that change, would you say there's been one or two keys that have really helped you, and from your experience, maybe some of the things you did wrong, maybe something that you stumbled across and you did well, that would just help schools just transition nicely towards Google Apps?
Yeah, I think, having that one focus was really helpful for teachers to focus on for the Google Apps. But I think the other thing was having management on board. It's really important for particularly the principal. Now the principal now invites everyone, or tells everyone they have to bring their devices to staff meetings, and we often do collaborative documents in staff meetings. So then everyone can see the real power behind that collaborativeness, and then of course as a teacher you always reflect and think, oh, how can I use this in my classroom as well? So it has a knock-on effect. So I think the principal sort of driving it and encouraging people to collaborate through your Google documents and is important as well, and I've seen that has made a big difference, and really encouraging people to see that benefit. Once people see the benefits, they're away and they're off, to be honest. It's not hard to convince teachers, because ultimately their main concern is the students and their learning. So anything they can see is going to benefit the learning, why wouldn't they do it? Yeah, and it's not like Google Docs is that hard to do. So I think one of the steps, with smaller kids, with your juniors, one of the steps to helping with working with a Google document and commenting is they started by using post-it notes and getting the kids to comment and teaching how to comment, because you can't just expect kids to be able to comment constructively and give feedback feed forward. You have to teach them how to do that. And so for the junior kids, the post-it notes were quite helpful in getting, they were writing sort of their reflection or their comments on post-it notes and putting it around the room, on work around the room, just to build that first before they started doing it in a Google document, and that really helped. It scaffolded them. I'm just trying to think what else. Yeah, I think, to be honest, having me, I don't blow my own trumpet here, but I think just having one person dedicated to driving the Google Apps for Education has made a difference as well, because it's very easy if you don't have anyone driving it. Yeah, I can't see how it would work actually. I don't know. How do schools cope? Do they without someone driving it? There has to be a driver, and it's full time. It's full on. If you want it to work, then you do need someone to drive it full time, I believe. And only because I've seen the difference it's made at our school, having me drive it and work with all the teachers and support them. Because some teachers need more support than others, but I don't know. That kind of helps just to keep it going, I think. Yeah,
it does. I think you're right. If you want implementation and that deep change, then you need to have that consistent approach where you are consistently working towards a goal, that you've got someone like yourself who is in the school who can keep up to date with the latest trends, and then do the thinking and the processing, and then go, okay, how would we apply that in our particular setting, and then be able to push that back down into the school. That's very true. Sometimes you get the opposite, though, that it's kind of like, there's a saying that one of the teachers told me just a couple of weeks ago that says that a prophet's not ever welcome in their own hometown. So whilst they're very good at what they're doing and they're in the school, the teachers don't necessarily listen to them because they're in the school. And so they were wanting to bring me in to do exactly what this other teacher could do, but the only difference was I wasn't in the school and I was just this outside voice, which I thought was an interesting concept, but quite often it works that way as well.
Yeah, I think that is interesting, because I think one of the reasons it's worked quite well for us is it's a bit like having a class. You've got to know you've got to know your students and know their strengths and weaknesses and know their interests to cater for the learning. And I find that with the teachers, you've got to understand where they're at and know them to be able to reach them. So you're always going to get your passionate teachers and there are some teachers I don't have to spend much time with at all because they're off and they're on their own journey and they can handle it themselves. But those ones that are a bit more reluctant and a bit more, persuasion sometimes, it's an interesting journey.
Yeah, I think my tips in terms of getting going and just helping your students and your teachers just adopt, I think I always find that if you go into a school that's already set up Google Apps and then they bring someone like myself in, or they do a staff development day where someone from inside the school drives it and they say, right, we've got Google Apps, now everyone has to learn how to use it. There's this immediate resistance to it because it's, here's another tool I've got to learn how to use. And, here we go again. This will be around for 6 months and then it'll be some other bright shining object. And there's that feedback and the resistance. Whereas if you could go in and show them some tools and some technology that supports learning, that they value, then what you do is you open them up to the idea that, this could really help me in the classroom. And that's when you go, what, would you like this? And they usually always go, yeah, for sure, like give it to me. And then from there you go, okay, we'll turn it on for you. So you kind of flip that paradigm just a little bit and do some really nice training that's all value-based. And then from there, then you become the hero, not the villain, in the sense that you're providing something that they're asking for rather than them, you forcing a new tool or a new technology onto them. So I think like that training side of thing is really paramount, really key.
Yeah, definitely, and someone that knows, like a Google certified teacher is a good indication of that they have the right knowledge to train. I must admit I've never had the time this year. I was intending to become one, but I just haven't had that time doing other postgraduate work and stuff. But yeah, that's probably something I'll look into next year. But I think that's important, having that key knowledge with a trainer that really does know what they're talking about and has a lot of experience, and that does make a big difference. I definitely agree with that. Yeah.
And so have you pushed Google Apps, not pushed it, have you made Google Apps available right down to the younger students in your school, or have you started it at a certain year level?
Well, that's an interesting question, because what we decided to do was have room accounts for the years 1 and 2, and then have individual accounts for years 3 up. Years 3 and 4 we don't give Gmail, we have that turned off, and year 5 and 6 we waited at the beginning of the year. We did a lot of cyber safety first, and then we introduced the Gmail side of things, but we wanted to make sure the kids knew how to share a document properly first, because it's very easy just to share a document through email and not really learn about the structure of Drive and just where to go to look at my shared and things like that. So that seemed to work quite well. Yeah.
And you guys are using Teacher Dashboard, is that right, by Hopara?
Oh, yes, we are, and feedback from teachers, they would not be without it. It's an incredible tool, and highly recommend that. I think that will be a big contributor to our success with Google Apps for Education and the buy-in for teachers as well, because it just enables you to view all the children's work all at once in a quick sort of snapshot view, and very quickly go into their work and comment and edit and do what you need to do. And there's no other tool like it. I mean, I know there's been talk around Google Classroom, but that's a completely different tool. And it seems to be, from what I can gather, most secondary schools they like to use the Google Classroom because it's kind of a assignment based. You ship out an assignment to the Google Drive and the student then turns it in and it gets graded. And so I haven't actually used it at the primary level, and I don't know anyone using it yet at the primary. Do you know other primary schools that use Google Classroom?
No, most of them are sticking with Teacher Dashboard just because of that functionality that it works across all documents, not just inside your Drive account. And One of the features they love, especially in primary school, is just in that ability to see what documents have been shared outside the school domain. So it just allows schools to be a little bit less strict on their sharing policy, but also feel like they're maintaining that sense of oversight and control. So I'm finding a lot of primary schools are really enjoying that feature alone, where they can just click a button and very quickly see any documents come from outside the school or any document that's leaving the school. So I think like if Classroom could come up with that kind of functionality and then start to work with all forms of documents like Word documents and PDF, then schools would start to look at it. But it's not like Google do everything. They create something and then release it into the wild and then update it as it goes. So it'll be interesting to see where it gets to in the next year or so.
Yeah,
it's certainly just not there just at the moment yet.
Definitely. One thing I haven't done is introduced Google Sites. That's something I haven't really done, and I'm just curious. Before we went to Google, I did a lot of research around why Google and not, Office 365, etc. And looked at a lot of schools that were using Google and how they were structured and set up. And some schools had used Sites to set up as a way of, it's kind of like a filter to their document system with the shared with all the teachers, so they're school-wide documents. I haven't done that, and I've deliberately not done that to try and get teachers to learn the structure of Google Drive, but I can see how it would benefit, for some teachers that do struggle without that structure. Have you had much experience with other schools sort of using Sites for helping to control their documents or manage their documents?
Yeah, I think it's good to have an understanding of Drive and Docs first, because it's kind of like Google Docs is like Docs 101, and then Sites would be kind of 201 in the sense it's probably another step. Not that it's complex, it's more just another layer of understanding that you need to apply.
Yes.
And so it can be great because you can embed your Drive account and individual docs into a Google site, but that site won't override the doc sharing permission. So if they have a doc that's private, they can still put it there as a placeholder, so to speak. But if someone hasn't got access to be able to view or comment or edit that doc, it will just come up as a blank box for them. So there's you can't get into trouble by accidentally sharing the wrong document with the wrong person, which is good. It does take a little bit of thinking through in terms of content architecture, like how does it flow, how are people going to find my information? Much like if you're going to design a website, you'd need to think about the flow of how people are going to come to the site, where do they need to go, how are they going to navigate the site, and so on. So it takes a little bit of thinking, but it's a great tool for being able to organise your thoughts, organise your notes, and then just be able to release that to the students. And then once you get going, if you look into page level permissions as well, you can have one site and then individual site pages have different permission levels as well. So a student might go to a particular site and they might only get half the options that a teacher might get. So you can really set it up to be a powerful tool. It takes a bit of organising to get started, but once it's set, it's a really nice tool to use. So yeah, I think if your teachers are feeling confident, then that would definitely be the next step to have a look at.
Yeah. Yeah, because I guess that's something I've been thinking about, what is my next steps with the school and looking at students getting their own blogs as well. We have, like I said, we've had that collaborative writing focus first, and then blogging's kind of a natural next step to that, I feel, as well. So that's something we're looking at and going to next as well. Yeah,
blogging is different to sites because, I mean, your students could, in a sense, try and turn a site into a blog, but you can't allow for commenting outside the domain, and it becomes a bit problematic that way. So, it'd be more about that e-portfolio, organising resources, and then blogging. So, yeah, either one of those would be a next good step, I reckon.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah. That's awesome.
So how about we jump into this doc for a second, just answer a couple of these questions. There's also a question in the Q&A app saying, do you think home teaching would be a good idea or not? I'm not quite exactly sure what the context of that is. I think maybe homeschooling or something.
Okay. Yeah. My sister homeschooled her kids. She had 5 kids. She homeschooled them. I take my hat off to her. But I'd recommend Google Ads for anything. Anybody business or a homeschool or school. There you
Yeah,
go.
I know there's a lot of homeschooling networks in America that use Google Apps to organise resources and so on. And
Yeah,
yeah, so certainly not for me. I'd go nuts if it was me personally, but it's certainly
yeah,
right for some people.
absolutely.
So you've got a question here in the doc. What's the best way for students to keep their work once they leave school? So I guess there's a website that you can go to, and it's just google.com and then /takeout. And what that website lets you do is go and find all your documents, whether that be your email, your Drive account, or your Google Plus stuff if you're on Google Plus, and then to be able to package all that up and then extract it off Google servers and put it onto a thumb drive or a different hard disk or something like that. So there's some really cool things we're talking about with some schools in America that for graduation presents, what they do is they buy a website for each one of their students, and well, they get a domain. So the domain would be, I don't know, in America, $9 for the first year or something like that. So they buy a domain name for their students, they put a WordPress site on it or a Blogger site, and then they just extract all that data off their server and put it into that website for the students, and then the students have that as a little present to take away with them post-graduation. So it'd be a little bit of work setting it all up,
Yes.
but you wouldn't have to pay for hosting. Oh, that's free. Another way you could do it is just to be able to get them their own site, or even just create a gmail.com account for them and then extract it all to that as well. So I don't
Yeah.
know. Have you seen any other ideas around that?
Yeah. I've heard of people that do use the takeout, and then children, or maybe it's not even to take out, that the children, the parents, obviously because they're under 13, parents have to set them up with a Gmail account, and then they just transfer it. So do you have to do the takeout to be able to then transfer it to a personal Gmail account? Or a personal,
You
yeah.
could grab all your folders and then just share it to that new account.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that would be one way to do it, except the ownership wouldn't transfer. It'd just be that you're sharing.
Right.
Sometimes schools just go, you know what, it's free, we don't care, so they just create a new organisation unit called Past Students, and then just roll all those students in there and just let them have their old email account and the account's still live. Or you could go and turn email off but leave Drive on maybe. So I know when we work with some of the more prestigious schools, they're looking at the whole concept of alumni, especially in high school, and so they want to have a reason for people to keep coming back and keep using their email address because it's essentially marketing for them. So yeah, I guess it depends on what your philosophy is and what your long game is.
Yeah. Yeah, true, exactly. And I guess I'm just thinking a couple of things we found with now more and more websites are using Google sign-ins. So we've had to be quite careful and teach the students about the cyber safety aspect of that and how they really need to use it as a school account. So if they're going to sign up, we had a child sign up for Kano Games, which is an R17 gaming site. Yeah, a 10-year-old. So, but he wouldn't have known it was R17, to be honest. It's hidden in the terms and conditions.
Yeah.
And that's we thought, we need to teach these children how to search terms and conditions for age. Just do that, Control F, or if you've got a Mac, Command F, and find in the terms and conditions a search for age, and then they can. They need to learn how to do that. I think parents need to learn how to do it too.
Absolutely. It's good to know too for administrators that I'm pretty sure it used to be this way. I haven't looked in the last, I don't know, maybe 6 months. But takeout is turned on by default in your Google admin panel, which means that any student at any time could go to that website and extract all their data off it, and there's nothing the school could do about it. So as an administrator, you probably want to go in and turn off takeout for all your students, except for the ones that you want to be able to take their stuff. Just in case some student thinks it's going to be funny and they go delete all their work or something. So have a look for that in your admin panel and turn it off.
Thank you. That's really useful.
Yeah. So here's another question. Question number 3 in this doc. How many schools are using individual student accounts at a junior level, like year 1 and 2, 5 and 6 year olds? There's plenty of schools doing that from what I've seen. So they give them all individual accounts. You can give them all the same password initially, And especially with junior schools, again, who are using Teacher Dashboard, there's a setting that you can set up in Teacher Dashboard that allows you to reset a whole class password. So it just resets everyone's password at the same time. So if your students come back from term and they've all forgotten, you can go and reset everybody's all at one go, or you could just go and reset one student's password as well. So yeah, we see them turning that on, but like these, it's in the junior years you might turn Gmail off for some students, and then as they get a little bit older you might turn Gmail on, but just restrict sending inside the domain. So they can send emails to one another, but they can't receive emails from outside the school, and they can't send emails outside the school. So then once you've created that nice, safe environment, then you can migrate them as they get a bit older into a more open environment as well. So yeah, I think there's no reason not to do it, personally.
Yeah, definitely. And I think for primary schools, we do have to be quite careful and make sure we are providing that cyber safety, and talking with the kids about it and educating them, because that's essential part of it all. Sometimes people roll these tools out without thinking about the effects that it can have on children and the possibilities. And it's, we have quite a strong cyber safety program where the kids, again and again get sort of into just being a good digital citizen and what that means. Yeah, so I think that's important.
Yeah, no, it sure is. There's another question here in that doc, which just says, and by the way, you can ask it in your Q&A app as well if you're watching live. How important is it to use is the username format for Gmail? So that's a good question. We get asked that all the time from 2 points of view, and in the document the question just goes on to say they've restricted to their domain only, but they're using their full names at the moment, so makes it easy, but is there any risks associated with that? I'll give you my opinion in a minute. Do you have an opinion on that at all?
Well, yeah, that's a really tricky one. I don't know if personally I'm not that comfortable with putting the full name of the student into the Gmail side for primary anyway. And I really like how Hapara, that's one of the other things that attracted me to Hapara's Teacher Dashboard, is they have a unique 4 or 5 sort of characters after the first name. So it'd be Helen XY, 02, whatever it is. And I quite like that because it makes a unique identity. Yeah, I'm not sure about that full name, but I'll be interested to hear your opinion on that one.
Yeah, I mean, some schools use their national ID number, but that's a nightmare to try and figure that out, like who's who in the zoo, especially when they're writing in a doc in real time, and you want to see who that student is. I think it's important to have names. One of the ways that things are going at the moment, especially in Google, is it's all around this concept of social. So with social, like if you take revision history at the moment, when we were last talking to the engineers at Google, they were saying that at the moment revision history is all chronological, but what they want to do is also make it available around this concept of social. So you might be able to say, well, show me everything that Sam has done in this document, and it'll go and find all that information and collate it for you. So there's a big push as well, if you look at Google Plus, that you have to have a proper name. So they don't want you using pen names. On the internet, it used to be that you'd hide behind fake names and you wouldn't use your real name, but that's all gone now. Everyone very much is using their real name. There's no real pen names. You don't really hide behind personalities. So I think it's probably, if that's the way everything's going, it's probably a good thing to have a look at your setup and probably provide the students with the ability to start to manage that and teach them the process of it. I would certainly say just go first name dot last name at your school domain name. And the only problem that I think that you might come across with that one, especially here in Australia, if you've got a student who's in like care of the state, we call it DOCS, Department of Community Services, that the child has been taken off the parent and given to another family to look after them, then there's all sorts of privacy around that. You can't take photos of them and publish them and so on. So the only slight issue you might have around that is if a parent was doing a search and somehow found that their student was at a particular school, that you could come into some issues there. But I think, for me, I'd rather give students a little bit of freedom and then teach them how to use it wisely, rather than trying to hide them behind it all the time. I think it just sets them up better for the future.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. Was it part of our cyber safety? We teach never to use a surname, obviously with a primary school. Never to use surname online. You know, first name only, and that's yeah, it's a real tricky one. It's tricky.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Yeah. So in terms of, I don't know, you've got to look at it in the big scheme of things too. Like longevity, how's it going to work over a number of years, and so on. I guess they're not signing up with their email. They're not necessarily signing up to a whole range of products that you'd need to keep them safe from people. Hopefully that wouldn't be the case. They'd use a different email address for that. I would certainly be saying to students, this is a school email, it's for schoolwork only, and be requiring them to use it that way as well. But yeah, it's a great question, and probably something that schools need to just think through and make sure that they've got a policy, but not just a policy, a reasoning behind their policy, that they can then, you know, have an intelligent conversation and discuss their reasons with parents and caregivers around that.
Yes, and I think that's important, that the community needs to be kept informed as well, and those agreements, are paramount. The parents need to know what you're doing. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, excellent. All right, well, we've got to the end of our questions, and we've been going for 45 minutes, which is amazing. It always just amazes me how fast these things go. Let me just quickly check Twitter. There you go. So Rebecca's saying she's taken so many notes. That's great. So what we're going to do, we might just start to wrap this up. I really appreciate you taking time out of your evening for this. We'll put a whole lot of resources in that Google Doc that we've shared out, and so I'll certainly put a link to my slide deck that I usually take teachers through step by step on how to deploy Google, so some things to think about and some questions to ask before they even get going. I'm not sure, Helen, if you feel comfortable putting your Ulearn presentation maybe in that doc just for people to have a look through. I know there's some great resources in there as well. If anyone's interested in catching up, I'm actually in New Zealand next week, and I know this was targeting people in New Zealand, so I'll be in Auckland on Thursday and Friday of next week, and then Queenstown Monday, Christchurch Tuesday, and then Invercargill Wednesday, Thursday. So if anyone's around and you want to catch up for a coffee after school or something, then send me a message. You can catch me on Google Plus just there, and it's just underneath my name. And send me a message and we'll see if we can catch up. I'd love to meet up face to face with people while I'm travelling. It's always a good thing.
Great, that's fantastic. Yeah, and thank you, Mike, for making the effort and suggesting this, because I think it's been really beneficial as a follow-up from Ulearn, but also anyone else who's joined into this, I'm sure has gained a lot out of it. So I appreciate your time, and that's been wonderful. So yes, I think I'm going to be having to pull you in and do some of our training soon. We'll might have to catch up for that coffee.
Yeah, we'll do it. No, more than happy. That's excellent. Okay, well, once again, guys, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate you watching live and taking time out of your evening to learn. We appreciate your passion and your energy, and we hope you have a great day in the classroom tomorrow. And we'll see you on the next Hangout or via some other form of social media. We'll talk to you soon.
Wonderful. Thanks, Mike.
No worries. Bye.